Hello, today we're going to be showing you how to set up a Philips Android television. This is a 43PFL5604, but the steps that we'll go through will be similar for any of our Android televisions. Okay, we have the box open now, and you'll see that there are stands, one each on the left and right side of the styrofoam, as well as a bag in the center. That bag contains, importantly, the screws for the stands, as well as the batteries and remote control for your television and a quick start guide. You should remove these items and set them aside. To begin, lay your television carefully face down on a safe, flat surface and gather the two stands and the screws necessary to assemble it. You will notice that the stands have an arrow pointing to the front of the television. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to attach them. You may now stand your television upright on the two attached stands and carefully remove the plastic protective cover as well as the cardboard covering the front screen. Returning to the other items we removed from the box, you may now slide the cover carefully off of the top of the remote at the bottom, insert the batteries, and either read or ignore the quick start guide. Okay, we've plugged in our television, and once it has fully powered up, we are greeted with a welcome screen and a choice of language. Obviously, select the language that you would like your on-screen menus to be written in this case, English. We're now offered the opportunity to set the television up with an Android phone or tablet. For many of us, we would prefer to just skip this step and manually input our information. That is also the most reliable way to set the television up, so we're going to skip this step at this time. At this stage, we see a list of Wi-Fi networks that the television has scanned and located. You'll want to select your Wi-Fi network. So at this stage, if you haven't already, it would be prudent for you to have the name of your wireless network as well as the password available to you so that you'll be able to enter it. The selection of a wireless network will reveal a convenient keyboard that will allow you to input symbols, letters, and numbers that correspond to the password for your wireless network. We'll do that now, and we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we've selected our network and we've input the password. The television will now connect and indicate, hopefully if you've typed everything in correctly, that it has connected correctly. There will be a brief delay here while the television connects to the network and verifies that the internet is accessible. Now this next step is a significant step because it is going to ask you to sign into your Google account. Because this television runs on Android, all of the applications that you might want to add or enjoy to this television, as well as the ones that are pre-installed, do require that you have access to the Google Play Store. That is where all of the new updated versions of these applications will appear. So we very strongly recommend that you either have the ability to sign into your existing Google account or take a minute now to go online and sign up for a free Google account. I'm going to go ahead and input my Google account here, and we'll be right back. It should be noted that if you have two-factor authentication enabled on your Google account, you will also need to have that code handy, so have whatever application that you're using for two-factor authentication handy so that you can pull that code. Once we've logged into the Google account, there will be a Terms of Service screen. You're welcome to read through these. They're pretty standard. But assuming that you've read them and you accept the terms of service, you simply click Accept. And Google does like to use your location data. There are a number of different apps that are very handy. For example, if you say, "Hey Google, what's my weather today?" It helps that it knows your location so that it can tell you. You don't have to enable location. The choice is completely up to you. We'll go ahead and enable it. And you can also help to improve in performance by sending diagnostic information. That's again up to you, yes or no. We'll select no here. At this point, it's going to ask you to name your television because it will actually appear on your network and it will appear in different Google apps on your different phone or tablets to be able to cast to or to be able to screen mirror to from a computer. So we're simply going to name this one Android TV. You can also put in a custom name there you would have seen on the bottom of the screen. And at this stage, the television will begin to connect to the internet.
Talkback on.
And start talking to you.
Text to speech.
This is a pretty easy screen to skip over and accidentally not pay attention to, but By law, all consumer electronics products in the United States have to have a feature called text-to-speech or Voiceguide, it depends on the model, for those people that are visually impaired who still want to enjoy those products. For example, someone who's visually impaired but wants to listen to a television program. Basically, this feature allows you to navigate through the menu. And as you can hear, each time you push the button,
very slow,
the television will repeat
to activate,
to tell you what you are currently selecting, in this case very slow, and what you can do with it. So I can activate it on very slow by hitting OK.
Selected off. Press select to activate.
We strongly recommend that you select off on this screen. Don't select fastest thinking, oh, that's performance or fast would be better. You want this off, or every single button press on the television will result in this television speaking to you. Finally, assuming that you are not a retailer, and why would you be if you were watching this video, you should select home to indicate that this television is indeed going into a house and not into a retail location. At this stage, you will be offered the opportunity to install channels. Many of you will actually have a cable box or a satellite box that you will connect to the television using HDMI. So for those of you that do have that type of a setup, you're going to skip this step. I'm going to go ahead and connect an antenna to the television and show you the installation process. Please skip ahead to the next stage if, again, you're using a cable or satellite box. A quick tour of the inputs and buttons on the back of the television will be in order at this time. You see in the center where I have connected a cable, that is the antenna or cable connection if you are using a screw-on or push-on RF type cable. So that should be a connection that's familiar to most of you. On the left side of the jack panel, you will see at the very top a USB connection that can be used to add memory to the television or to stream videos or play pictures from. Below the USB connection, you have 3 HDMI inputs, and I will point out that the center one, HDMI 2, is the only input that supports ARC, or Audio Return Channel. So if you have a device that supports ARC, perhaps a home theater system or a soundbar, you would want to use HDMI 2 for that connection. To the right of those 3 HDMI inputs, you will see a white, it looks white in this picture, but it's actually yellow. It's the video connection. It's labeled video in this shot, and obscured by the cable I have connected is another connection, which would be the left audio channel, and you can see the right audio channel there. It looks orange in the picture, but it's actually red. These are the RCA connections for legacy devices like older VCRs or other inputs that still use the red and white audio cables, as well as a yellow, typically video cable. To the right of that is a headphone jack, conveniently labeled headphones. That's where you would plug in a 3.5mm headphone connection. And finally, at the bottom of the screen, you will see 2 connections that could be useful to you depending upon your circumstances. The left side, it looks like kind of a raised silver area or black area with a white shape there that's almost like a door. That is what we call Toslink. It is an optical digital output from this television. So if you needed to take audio from this television to a home theater system using optical, that is where you would do it. And then to the right of that is an Ethernet connection. That's very useful if you would prefer to connect to your network using a wire for stability or speed reasons. And then, of course, on the right side of this shot are 4 buttons, your power button, and your various buttons that will allow you to control the source or volume up or down. Okay, we've connected the antenna, and now we're going to tell the television, hey, it is an antenna. And this stage will take some time, so we will probably pause it here and resume because it does scan all of the major and minor channel frequencies. And for those of you that are not into frequencies and geeky stuff like that, just look away, don't listen. But it can take, as it says here, may take more than 20 minutes. It probably won't, but if you have a lot of channels in your area and a lot of sub-channels, it may take longer. So again, we'll pause this and we will return once the television has programmed all the channels. And you can sort of see over there that 7 have been found so far. That number will change as it goes through all the frequencies. Okay, once the channel installation has completed, you can select Finish. And the TV will take just a second to go ahead and load into the next screen, which is a welcome tour. You can watch these screens. They will explain some basic features of the television, but we're going to skip all that because you don't need that. You've got me to explain it to you. And then once you finish the tutorial, it will go ahead and prepare your home screen. So the very first thing that you may well see is a notice that was just up on screen in the upper right indicating that new software is available. That is very common, as both Android and all of the apps on this television are updated frequently to keep them current. To initiate the software update, select Details. So if you do that, you will see that there is a new software version available, and it is downloaded already and verified because we did connect the TV to the internet. There's a note there indicating that what this television does receive from the update, in this case stability improvements, and it is recommended. So we will go ahead and restart the television to receive that update. And you'll see a countdown to reboot. The television will reboot, and we will resume on the other side of that update. While the television is updating, you will see kind of a multicolored ring that shimmers and a countdown for system update progress. Of course, please do not unplug your television or your router or your access to the internet during this period. So the TV has rebooted, and we will begin our tour of the menu. Okay, the first thing that you'll notice if we start at the upper left of the television home screen is something that looks like a bunch of multicolored balloons and a suggestion to try searching for movies about football in this case. Now those multicolored balloons actually correspond to a button on the remote, shown right there above the main thumb pad. And pressing that remote will actually enable your television to take voice commands from you. So it will pop this screen up that asks you to turn on the voice dictation feature, which we've now done. So with the voice dictation feature on, we can push and hold that multicolored circle button or balloon button and simply say, "Okay, Google, do something." Google, what is the weather like?
Currently in Woodstock, it's 42 and sunny. Today, it'll be sunny with a forecasted high of 45 and a low of 31.
Now, you may well want to do more than just check your weather, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. So one of the tips that I will give you is that you can simply push the Google button and ask Google to tell you what you can say. Google, what can I say?
You can say, "What is the humidity this weekend?" or "How do I change my nickname?"
So you can see here that there are a whole bunch of different areas that Google can help you with. If you have one of the many thermostats that are able to be linked to Google Home, for example, you can control your thermostat just by talking to your television. If you have a radio app installed, you can play the radio. Obviously, there's more television-related commands, such as this one. You can just ask Google to find you different types of shows. You can also have Google start to play various apps. Simply push a button and say, "Google, open YouTube," or "Google, play Netflix," etc. So it's a very useful feature. Should simplify the control of your television. So hopefully you will enjoy that fantastic feature. Okay, we're going to navigate around the menu and the screen with a particular emphasis in this section on how to adjust your picture settings and how to change inputs to whatever input you may wish to change to. There are some odd behaviors on this television, not gonna lie, that if you read the button or the icon, the behavior that you get from pressing the button or pressing the icon may not be what you expect. And a perfect example here is this button that's labeled Live TV. And you'll see that I actually have a Blu-ray player connected to this television, and I'm telling you now, the Blu-ray player is the last source that I watched on this television. So if I wanted to watch live TV, which in this case is an antenna signal, I might be tempted to press the Live TV button to do that. But what you see here is that pressing the Live TV button actually went back to the last input that the TV was on, not my live TV signal, which is connected via an antenna. I think the reason that the TV is designed that way is because a majority of people in this market actually use a set-top box for their television or some other device. A lot of people have cut the cord and they're using a streaming device for their, quote, television. So it made sense to have the live TV button function like the last input button. So it'll just kick you back to whatever device you were on. But that does tend to make finding your antenna signal less intuitive than one might think. Now, the second thought that you might have is, well, there is a TV button right on the remote. So perhaps if I press the TV button, that will return me to the antenna. So if we do that, again, it takes us to last input. So the TV button and the watch TV icon, or live TV icon, do not return you to your antenna signal. So this is the way that you would get to your antenna signal, assuming you have other inputs connected to the TV and you're using them. Obviously, if the antenna is the only thing connected to your TV, these buttons will function just fine. But if you do have another device, this is the way to get back to the antenna or the cable feed. What you will do is you will select the input button, shown here in the center. It's a rectangle with an arrow. And if you press that button, it will bring up a list of all of your inputs, and you will see a live TV tuner option. That option will take you to that input, which in this case is an antenna, but it might be a cable input for you. So that is how you do that. The other thing to keep in mind is that that input button is also how you would switch inputs quickly and easily. So if I wanted to return back now to watching my Blu-ray player, I would simply select HDMI 2. It would kick over to my Blu-ray player. So two things there. One, how to get back to your cable or antenna signal, and how to switch inputs. The answer to both of those questions is the input button on the remote control. The next thing that we're going to want to do, most likely, is adjust picture settings. And in many TVs, you can simply hit the home button, which I've done here, and then you would go under settings and you would find your picture settings and just adjust them. And you see there is actually a picture section here, but it is grayed out. I can't select it for some reason. And to understand this, you kind of have to get into the mindset of the designers of the television a little bit. But all of the picture settings that you can optimize, they are optimized by input. And I mean, theoretically, you would want to be adjusting those settings while watching the input that you were adjusting. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to adjust brightness on this screen, then go over to your antenna signal and say, oh, it doesn't look right, let me go back to the home screen and adjust it there. So that's kind of a long-winded way of telling you that to adjust picture settings on this particular television, you have to be on the input that you want to adjust. So if we return back to our Blu-ray player for a second, and I wanted to adjust the picture settings on my Blu-ray player input, which again is HDMI 2, I would go to that input, play the disc that I was interested in, and then again using the remote control, I'm going to select options, which is right here at the top, labeled options, and it has sort of dots and lines. And when you press options, this menu will come up, whether you're on your antenna input or an HDMI input. And this is where you can change all of the various settings that you're used to on your television. Anything from the format to full screen, 16:9 or 4:3. This is a Blu-ray player, so you're only going to have the option of full here. But if this were the antenna, and I'll show you that in a second, you would have the option for 4:3 or 16:9, as well as some other options. You also then have the ability in here to change your closed caption settings. So if you want them on, or if you just want them on when you're muted, a very handy feature if you have a lot of noise in the background and you just mute the TV so you can read along. That's where that option is. The other options that you have in this menu that you will certainly want to make note of, your sound settings, your power settings, but under settings at the far right, this is where all of your picture settings are, and it pulls up the settings menu, but now you'll notice that that picture icon is not grayed out, and when you select it here are all of your various picture settings. So if I think, oh, that picture is a little bit too bright, I can turn the brightness down or up. I can go back and adjust the color, the tint, the sharpness, and all of the other settings that I might want. So that is how you adjust your picture settings. You go to the input that you are wanting to adjust and then hit the options button on the remote. Now if I come back to our home menu and I want to show you the same thing for live TV, so which is my antenna signal, I'm going to go to the live TV tuner here. And this time when I hit options, I'm going to go under my picture format, and you will see that I now have the option to make that picture widescreen so that it fills the entire screen. So if you're watching a television program and it's not filling the screen for you, you can select the option to do so. And again, my picture settings are under Settings, Picture, and now I'm actually adjusting the brightness for just this input. You'll notice that the brightness here is only on 50. On my Blu-ray player, it was already up to 60 something. So those settings are toggled and remembered individually for each input. So that is how you will adjust your picture settings for each input, as well as formatting, picture format, closed captioning, sound settings, etc. Hopefully you will find that helpful. Okay, we're going to cover a special topic for those of you that are using an antenna signal or a cable signal from, say, a wall outlet directly to your television, where you've auto-programmed the channels into your television. And we're going to show two different ways to get a program guide on this television, because you might want a quicker and easier way to find programming than simply channeling up and down and looking for it the old-fashioned way. So the first thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and tune over to our connected antenna. And you remember we hit the input button on the remote control, and that pulls up all the different inputs, and we're going to select Live TV Tuner. That's then going to tune over, and here we are. Look, it's TV. On the remote control itself is a button on the left side, 2 buttons down from Netflix, that is labeled TV Guide. And if you hit that button, you will see that all of the channels that your television has memorized are here. Now I'm in a very poor area for antenna signal in this particular location, so I don't have a lot of guide information that's loaded yet, but I do have obviously this channel that comes in very strongly, and you can see that there is my EPG. So this is the basic guide, and this is what it looks like. If you hit the left arrow, you see that you have either all channels or movies. So I do want to caution you that if you ever come into the electronic program guide and you don't see any channels, you only see this channel, 1-1 Google Play Movies and TV, that look to the left and you'll see where Movies is selected. If you simply go up 1 to all channels, hey, there's all of our channels again. This is a very easy mistake to make. Some customers will, too quickly hit buttons and they come in here and they go, all my channels are gone. So just move up to all channels, then move back to the right, and you will see all your channels still, in fact, exist. They're still programmed in, and no reason to panic. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is an option for a different EPG. Now, this is fully up to you whether you prefer the functionality that this adds or the programming that it adds. It's certainly not required. You can stick with the basic electronic programming guide that Android has. But in order to take advantage of this other option, what we're going to do is actually add an application to our television. And the application that we're going to add is called Pluto. And you see at the top it says Pluto, it's free TV. This particular app is going to do two things. It's going to give a different electronic programming guide, and it's also going to add a whole bunch of free channels. So if we install the application, it does not take very long, then what we want to do is we want to tell the television to use Pluto's EPG instead of the basic one. So to do that, we will go under Settings, which is the little gear in the upper right. And this time we're going to go down to the second option, which is Channel. And we're going to select Channel Sources. You can already see there's a note there saying, hey, there's new channel sources available. Do you want to use them? So we select Pluto TV, which you see here is highlighted as New. So we'll say, yes, please use that as a new channel source. and Pluto will launch. A bunch of eyeballs that will be leering at you. And once that has launched, so now that we've installed Pluto TV, if we go ahead and switch over to our live TV tuner and hit the electronic program guide or the TV guide button, it looks the same here, but you will notice that on the left side, instead of just having all channels and movies, there are a whole bunch of other categories ranging from sports to movies to comedy to drama, etc. And there are a whole bunch of other channels that are going to show up here. And these are basically the channels that are coming from Pluto TV. So there are a bunch of just free channels that are available through this Pluto service. I do like the EPG because it does give you the option to quickly find, comedies or dramas that you might not have otherwise been aware of that were on. And it also still contains all of your existing TV channel information. So it's entirely up to you, totally optional application. Pluto TV, don't need to use it. But if you find it useful, this would be another option for you to use an EPG and to get some additional free channels to watch. So there you go. This next setting is an important one to make note of. If you have a newer source device, that device could be a Blu-ray player, it could be a cable or satellite box, a gaming system, or a streaming device, Apple TV, Roku, Chromecast, you name it. But if you have one of these devices that you know supports HDR10 or a higher resolution in terms of refresh rate 4K signal, so a 60 hertz 4K signal, and you're not seeing that resolution on the television, or you're getting an error message from the source device saying that your TV doesn't support the output resolution, then this is the setting that you're going to want to pay attention to. And the short version of why this issue occurs is the HDMI inputs on this television have to be told how high of a resolution or what quality resolution the signal that you're sending them is. And there are two options for this. And I'm going to do two things. I'm going to show you one way to determine whether you're set correctly by looking at your source. And I have connected a Blu-ray player to the television in order to do that. And I'm also going to show you in the menu how to both check and or change the setting. So to start with, we're going to go over to the Blu-ray player now, which you'll see is on HDMI 2. And the first thing that you'll notice when it pops over to the Blu-ray player and you start playing it is there is a resolution that pops up there, and notice it does not say anything about HDR, even though I know this is an HDR disc. So that's the first way to tell with any source device. The second thing is it's telling you, hey, please connect it to a TV that supports HDR, and we know that this TV does support HDR, so why are we getting that error message? And then finally, if we play any source on the television, we can actually hit the info button, which is in the upper right, right below the voodoo button, and that info button will tell us the source quality, and in this case it's showing that we don't have HDR, but we do have a 4K signal at 24 hertz. So that is not optimal. We would much rather watch this movie in its intended resolution. So how do we change that? It's pretty straightforward. If you go back over to your television menu, and in your television menu you go under Settings, you'll see a section in Settings that is labeled Inputs. And under the Inputs section at the bottom, you're going to see an area that's labeled HDMI EDID version. And you can already see that HDMI 1 is set differently from HDMI 2, which is where this Blu-ray player is connected. The two options are 2.0 or 1.4. So if you have a device that you know is capable of HDR or of 60 hertz 4K, it's a newer device, it's really high quality, you're going to want to change this to EDID 2.0. And doing that will essentially say to the television, hey, you're connected to a really good device that has a high quality signal, and you should be looking for that signal. So now if we return to our source and we hit our info button, you can see that we're getting HDR on this picture. So this movie is formatted in a 24 Hertz 4K HDR. That is the highest resolution that this particular disc will deliver, and we are now getting the full benefits of that. So again, that's a good setting to know for how to change the resolution of your HDMI inputs. Okay, so at this point I'm going to show you some ways to customize your home screen layout. There are a couple that I think may be useful for more people than not. And the first thing that I will point out is that you will want to know how you can reorder all of these various channels that you see stacked up here. So each channel that you are signed into, and I am signed into YouTube and Netflix on this particular television, gets its own row, and in that row you see various videos that are tied to your sign-in. So these are what Netflix is recommending, and these are what YouTube are recommending, for example. Now let's say that you, in your household, do not want YouTube to be on the top, you want Netflix to be on the top. So the easy way to reorder these items is to simply scroll down to the item that you are concerned with, in this case Netflix. Then you'll see that there's a left arrow that is appearing there. If you move left once, now there's a circle that has an arrow going up or down. Go ahead and press OK to select that. Now the whole row is highlighted and you can move it up or down as you prefer. And I'm going to go ahead and just drop it by hitting OK again to be the top. So we've now completely reordered these applications, and Netflix is at the top. If you had a Disney Plus account or a Vudu account or any other account that you wanted to be at the top, the procedure would be the same. You would just go down to that app and move it up. A second way that you might want to customize your home screen has to do with what you want to actually appear. And if you scroll down in the menu until you see home screen under settings, there are a bunch of different options here. You can enable or disable video previews. So when you highlight something you don't want the video preview to show, just turn that off, as I have. Same for audio previews. You can also come down here underneath the Customize Channels icon, and any of the services that you have on this television or that are signed into, you can get rid of the channel if you would prefer. So you see here that YouTube actually has 3 channels. We have the recommended, we have the subscriptions, we have the trending. Maybe I don't want to see trending, so I'll simply turn off the trending slider there. And now when we come back to the home screen, I only see recommended and subscriptions, and that whole trending channel is not being shown. You can also go directly to Customize Channels here at the bottom, and by selecting that, that will bring you to the exact same spot that I just showed you in the menu. There's also a promotional channel here that you can either enable, it will be default enabled, you can disable it if you prefer. So those are some quick and easy ways to customize your home screen. The next tip that I'm going to show you is how to actually add applications to your television and how to have that application show up as a favorite so that it is always visible here. Now you would think from looking at this layout that to add an application you would hit the big plus button, but that doesn't add an application to the television. That is only going to add an application that's already on the television to your favorites bar. So if I go in here, you'll see that I have Disney Plus also as an app that's installed. I can now add that to my favorites bar, and you see that Disney Plus has now shown up there. But that doesn't answer the question of, well, hey, how do you add apps to the television in general? So the easiest way I have found to add apps to this television is to go over to where it says Apps on the left there and highlight that circle. And then you're able to select Get More Apps, and that will open your Google Play Store. And now you can add whatever apps you're interested in. For example, here is an application that is a browser. So if I wanted to actually browse the internet on this television, I would install it thusly. And then once that's installed, it will also show up as an application that I can then add to favorites, just like that. And the last thing that I want to show you is how to delete an application. So you've downloaded an application, for whatever reason you're not finding it terribly useful. In order to do that, what you would do is you would go into Settings, then you scroll down to where it says Apps, and underneath Apps you can just simply pick the app and then select Uninstall. You'll see a couple of bits of information, how much storage is being taken up by the application, etc. You can also clear the data or clear the cache. But in this case, we're simply going to select Uninstall. It will ask for confirmation. You select OK. And you see that that has vanished from the apps list. And more importantly, it has vanished from my favorites list. And if I had had a channel set up with it, one of the rows, that will also now not appear. So that is how you both add and delete applications. Okay, this video will be an overview of the Talkback feature after initial setup. As a reminder, Talkback is a feature that is essentially required by law here in the United States. It is for visually impaired people. It allows them to navigate and use the remote control and video devices since they're not able to see clearly the menu items on the screen. This basically has the television speak each command on the remote control so that a user who is unable to see the screen and see what they're highlighting and what they're selecting, they audibly hear the TV say, "You are now on settings," or "Your volume is now 8." It's a very good feature for that specific need, but it can be a feature that frustrates those of us that don't need that feature. So I'm going to show you two things that will happen if you have Voiceguide enabled by mistake somehow. And I'm going to show you how to either disable that feature if you don't need it, and how to enable it if you do have someone in your home who does require it because they are visually impaired. So the very first thing that may happen to you if Voiceguide becomes enabled and the volume level on the TV is not very high is this. You will hold the volume button down and you will say, "Hey, my volume is not responding. Look, the bar is not going up. It's just sitting there. I'm pushing volume up. Why is it doing nothing?" And what's actually happening is that the television is repeating each step of the volume increase before the next step happens. It's how the feature is designed to work. So, imagine your eyes are closed and you're adjusting the volume. How would you know what level the volume is at? And what the feature is doing is it's going from, in this case, 0 to it's saying volume set to 1, volume set to 2. And it's having to say that before going to the next level of volume. So to your eyes, it appears nothing's happening, when in actuality, there is something going on in the background. And I'm going to move a little closer so you can hear this.
Music volume set to 10%.
So you see there, we're only at 10% volume, and now we're going to be at a higher level.
10%. Music volume set to 10%.
So in that case, if you do see that your volume slider is not reacting quickly or seemingly not reacting at all, definitely check your Voiceguide settings. The other sort of frustrating to those of us that don't require this feature behavior
set to 15%.
is that every single button click on the remote
Settings, Android TV home.
results in the TV
Press
talking
select
to you.
activate. Help. Press select to activate.
So you're navigating around,
Inputs. Press select to activate.
and every time you move,
11 items.
you hear that the TV is saying something.
Press select to act live TV. Apps button out of list.
So
Press
again,
select to activate.
this feature is designed for those who cannot see the screen from a viewing distance. They have a visual impairment of some sort. So
Live TV in list 11 items.
for someone who needs this feature, it is a lifesaver. But for those of us who don't require this feature, when it becomes enabled, it can be a little bit annoying, to say the least. Why is my TV talking to me? Please make it stop. So the way that you would disable this feature after setup
Inputs.
is you would go under Settings,
Settings on left, Android TV Home on right.
and you would scroll down to the bottom section that is labeled Accessibility.
Network in channel. Input. Pick. Sound. Scoop. Apps. About. Prep. Accessibility. Caption. Cable. Antenna. In list. 8 items.
Of course, this television's talking to us the whole way. But you'll notice a little bit below midway down, there is something labeled Talkback, and it says that that feature is on.
Talkback on.
We're going to disable that feature.
Enable. Check. OK. In list 2 items. Talkback off.
Once we turn that feature off, it no longer speaks to us. And our volume behavior is what we would expect. It's moving much quicker because it's not having to speak to us to tell us the volume level anymore. So if your TV behaves in either of the two displayed ways, either the volume seems to be very slow, it's not responding, you can't see that it's doing anything, or more commonly, your TV keeps repeating every single button press that you're doing on the remote, then Talkback is most likely turned on, and you'll want to navigate to the Settings menu, which is that little gear in the upper right, and you'll want to go down to Accessibility and disable Talkback. Conversely, if any of you watching this video are here because you want to enable Talkback, you have someone in your home that can benefit from the feature, they are visually impaired, then exact same process, but this time put a checkbox in the box for Enable, and then that person will be able to enjoy the full benefits of the television even though they can't see the screen. So that is an overview of the Talkback feature and how to enable or disable it.